welcome back to Bordertown. Today's episode is going to be pretty special as we're going to be working on some neighborhoods on the Mexican side of the border, which is very exciting because this is something that I've been wanting to work on for quite a while, but this has been a pretty good reason why I haven't started working on it. And that is because until now there hasn't been any assets that really fits the Mexican theme of architecture. And I guess we are looking at one particular style of architecture. Obviously this doesn't reflect all the styles of architecture in Mexico, but in terms of an area that I was drawing inspiration from, I'm mostly going for inspiration for this neighborhood that sits in Juarez. A lot of the neighborhoods in Juarez actually look like this. And, I think these neighborhoods look so super interesting that I knew that if I was ever going to capture the atmosphere and the feeling of this area, I really needed to, actually have assets that really reflected this. I couldn't just take any assets from the workshop. They needed to be assets that were specially created. And I'm really lucky because Beard Monkey, who is somebody who I've worked with quite a lot of times, he's also one of my favorite asset creators, and he's also just created some custom assets for this series, which is so super exciting and massively generous of the guy. I'm really, really appreciative, and I'm sure you guys will be too because they are actually on the workshop as we speak. So you should definitely go and check them out. They are really, really fantastic looking assets. They're very unique. No other asset really looks like this on the workshop. And if you do go and check him out, please go and leave him some nice feedback and upvote his assets. That will help him out heaps. He's doing this out of the kindness of his heart, and I really, really appreciate your work on this. So thank you so much. I really hope I do them justice in this build today. It is going to be pretty much focused on building this suburb. What I do like to do when I do create, when I do builds in City Skylines is I do want to focus on a bit of a project. I want to focus on something and try to complete most of it within a certain time frame. And with this neighborhood, I wanted it to feel like it was a complete neighborhood. So of course there's going to be other suburbs around here, but in terms of this particular neighborhood, there's the local shops that I'm going to be plopping down. It has schools, and it has a hospital, and it's close to the downtown, and it also has this really unique river that sort of cuts through the generic grid, I guess. I really wanted there to be some kind of uniqueness to this area. I didn't want there just to be a standard grid and me just plopping things down. I did want there to be a river or something that was a little bit more unique. And as you can tell, I'm having a bit of a hard time trying to figure out how I'm going to sort of cover up some of these ugly marks. Don't worry, I come up with a really clever idea, and this path that I've just drawn down before, this muddy river path, is actually just a road, but I end up replacing it with a canal that does a much better job at representing what I'm trying to create. So this river is sort of like this really dirty, this quite small river, and as you know that building little rivers in City Skylines can be kind of tricky. The game sort of only wants you to build biggish water sources, so creating something small is kind of tricky. So had a bit of a hard time doing that, but the canal turns out really nice, and you'll see that midway through the actual episodes. But something that I'm doing right now is I'm actually starting to place down this neighborhood, and as you can tell, if you're kind of new to my channel, everybody else just join in for the ride as I kind of go over some stuff I've spoken about before. But pretty much I never just watch anything grow in the game. I find that super unrealistic because buildings don't just spawn randomly. They are designed to go in certain locations, and it's the same for areas like this. Every building has been created to fit its environment. So, just zoning and hoping that you get some good looking buildings doesn't really add up to me. And I also wanted there to be the good, a good variety of the different types of buildings that Beard Monkey has actually created. And even since his build, he's actually gone and created more of these buildings. So there's actually more buildings on the workshop than you see me place down. So that's pretty exciting. But pretty much I'm using a couple of different mods. I'm using a collection of Move It and Plot the Growables, and I think I'm also using Rico mod, but that's not essential. But I'm using a couple of different mods so that I can just I'm also using the mod Find It, so I can just search through my assets and find the buildings that I want. Beardmonk has actually created a really easy way to find these buildings just by typing in MX, and then it comes up with the types of buildings that he's done. And what I'm just doing is I just generally place down as many different types of the buildings as possible, and then I can just copy and paste them into the right location. And that works really nicely. It gets like a really unique looking suburb, and it doesn't look unrealistic. Actually, what I'm doing right now is I'm going through and I'm placing down some of these backlots that I created for Springwood, which is another series I've got. And what these backlots are pretty much, they're these parks that I created in Asset Editor. I just pretty much placed down a bit of concrete and some fences and some roughed up decals to just create a bit of a different surface, some trees, and just a couple of random props so that I can use those and move them behind the buildings so that it's a bit more unique, and it saves me having to place down backlots every single time I create a suburb. And then I can just copy and paste them wherever I like. It's and I'm not even adding to the prop count because they're a park. And then the buildings like them themselves because they're actually parks and not just random props. So that works as well. And somebody did ask if I could upload, well, quite a lot of people asked if I could upload them to the Steam Workshop. Unfortunately, I'm not going to, so sorry about that. The reason why is because there are quite a lot of assets reliant on those parks, and it's sort of not really worth actually downloading all those assets if you don't already have them just to use these blocks. To be honest, they were super simple to make. I think it took me like an hour to just create these tiny little parks. And basically all I'm doing is I'm placing them down and then I just drag them behind a building and then that's it. So they're nothing really special, but I do suggest going to create them yourself in Asset Editor. They're super simple. They're really just broken decals. I probably even went to too much detail. I reckon that even worked better with less detail, even just like ploppable asphalt and some broken decals, and that's it. I'd probably stick with that if I was going to make them again. But for me, they work. I built them specifically for Springwood and for them to go behind buildings that I was creating within the city. But I've actually been using them heaps. I've been using them in all my series, and I've been using them in a lot more other scenarios. So they're really useful, and I really suggest you go and make them yourself with assets that you already are subscribed to. And just on the topic on Springwood, just really quickly, I don't know if I addressed this last time, but Springwood will return. Like, I am just having like a big break from that series. I'm not burnt out from that series at all. I've just got too much going on at the moment that I can't really commit to it. And I'm so inspired by Bordertown right now that I'm just so committed to doing it. Once I make a bit of progress on this series, I'm probably going to record some episodes of Springwood without you guys even knowing, and then I'll just start releasing them as time goes by. So it will return, don't worry. Like, I'm definitely not giving up on that series. I'm still very inspired by it, but I'm just having a bit of a break. I've been doing that series for like a year and a half now, and wouldn't mind just a little bit of time off. And actually what you've seen me just do right now is place down that canal, and I think it looks fantastic. So I think it's called a Japanese canal on the workshop, and I think you get 2 when you subscribe to it. It's by Ronix. It's really cool looking, and what I end up doing at some stages, I put some ploppable asphalt inside it and a dirt decal on top of it, and just copy it along the whole canal, and it just creates a really cool dirty surface. So it looks like it's filled with water, even though it's really not. It's only for looks. A lot of what I am doing is for looks, and something about this neighborhood that I just want you to sort of consider is that I'm not going to go into this much detail with every single suburb that I build around here. What I tend to do is I'll build with like a lot of detail in some areas, and then other places I might just like flesh it out with just very basic buildings and zero detail. And I plan to do that at some stage. Like this actual area, I just wanted to get really detailed and look super nice. Go for a particular theme and, just really paint down this surface and just go to town with all the detail, which is what I do. I really don't hold out at all. I totally just go to town with the detail. And I think it turned out really cool, but I'd really love your ideas. So please shoot them down below and let me know, what you think about this area. I really encourage you to go and fly around this neighborhood in Juarez, because I think it's a really interesting neighborhood. It reminds me of the couple of neighborhoods that I've visited in Mexico that were super interesting. They're very unique, and really loved sort of walking around them. And basically I've just plopped down the majority of the buildings, and now I'm going through certain areas and just adding in other little bits of detail. So you can see me placing down some shacks that I'm, either splicing into the buildings or I'm placing behind them. I'm also finding some other buildings in the workshop that are in my collection. I think these ones are called Shantytown buildings, and I'm just placing them inside as well, just to change a bit of the atmosphere. And I'm also trying to suss out where certain areas are within this neighborhood. So where is the small shops going to sit, and where am I going to place a hospital, and where the main access roads are. And actually something about the roads that I found quite interesting about this area. So looking on Google Earth, I was just checking out how the roads connect up, how it's just a very standard grid. However, where this canal is, they only seem to have the main roads still intact, whereas these side alleys, only every now and again do they still connect. And some of them sort of shoot off with dirt roads, or some of them will make it across the canal, or some of them will stop suddenly and turn into something different. And I thought that was quite cool. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to create this particular suburb. So that's something that I was sort of taking on board and trying to recreate somehow. So you'll notice that a couple of my roads will either cross the river, or they will stop, or there'll be a bit of a road that will connect to a different place. So just have a look out for that, because I think you probably don't even realize how big this suburb is. It's actually massive. It's almost as big as everything we've built already in this series, which is crazy. But there is quite a lot of detail within this area, a lot of interesting parts that you might not notice, so definitely keep an eye out for it. In the cinematics, definitely stick around to the ending, because I think the cinematics turned out really, really cool. There's a lot involved in them, so check them out at the very end. But in terms of actually developing out Juarez a little bit more in this series, so a lot of the suburbs will look like this, and I'll be following a very similar format because a lot of the suburbs around Juarez actually look like this. But not every suburb I'm going to be doing in Mexico will actually be like this. We'll plan to do much different styles. That is sort of another reason why I want to do this series, is because now that I'm focusing on 2 countries, I can actually focus on particular building styles, neighborhoods, trends, I guess, and the structure of how neighborhoods and architecture sits within Mexico and the US. Actually, at this point, I change my perspective on the camera and I get really, really close down to the ground. You can actually start seeing some of the detail, even though we're only halfway through the episode. I started placing down these really cool broken fences that just add so much detail to this area. I'm really happy that I thought about putting them down. This is something that I was sort of struggling with a bit when I was building this area, and I thought, I might get down straight into Street View and check out some of the areas and how they really look in real life. And these fences I noticed around the canal, and I thought that was quite a cool touch. And actually, what I'm moving on to now is I'm starting to build a church. Now, this, of course, isn't exactly a church found in Mexico, though it looks so similar. I remember saying a lot of churches look very similar to this, but look, I'm sure there's someone in the comment section saying, mate, this is a church that belongs somewhere else. Like, yeah, you're probably right. But, in terms of what I've got to work with, I think this church fits in really nicely, and was pretty stoked with how it turned out. But I'm just giving it some minor detail. I didn't want to go too crazy, though it is a bit of a focal point for this whole neighborhood. like I was saying before, I wanted to make sure this neighborhood had everything that neighborhoods in Juarez would probably have. And church is such a big, religion is such a big part of Mexican culture that I thought that it would be probably very much appropriate to place down a church. And I'm taking ideas from my trip to Mexico. I'm taking ideas from Google Earth, where I'm noticing quite a lot of churches that sit within each neighborhood. Even in Australia, churches are in pretty much every neighborhood. So, this is something that I haven't really ever thought about placing down in City Skylines series, but I think in this series I'm really going to focus on what it takes, what is within a neighborhood, and think about what actually is the most realistic thing to be placing down. Actually, this is me placing down the hospital. I just added a little bit of extra details to it. Sorry, I was a bit quick with that. I'm going to come back and work on that a little bit later on too. I'm going to add in some extra bits, and also you see plenty of it in the cinematics, so if you just want to shoot to that, skip all the rambling, then definitely go and do that as well. And I guess while I'm still rambling, just quickly mention the billboards competition, I guess you can call it. I don't know what to call it, but I've been basically asking for people to create images for this series that we're going to create into billboards. That Evan and Ganuk are going to be creating billboards out of the images that people have been submitting on Discord. If you're interested, go and check out the Discord. It's all in the links below. But basically, we've had tons and tons and tons of submissions, which has been really, really awesome. Keep them coming. We're going to stop accepting submissions on the 7th of October. So time is running out. So get your submissions in, and I'm only going to be able to choose about 30. So that's 30 all up, not just 30 for one particular style of billboards, which sounds like a lot, but it's not really, considering how many people have entered. And I will be choosing a huge variety of people's work. I'm not just going to choose from 2 people. I'm going to be choosing basically try and choose as many people's work as possible. The ones that I'm going to be choosing are the ones that are unique, are the ones that fit the theme for this series, because I've already got a whole bunch of generic American billboards. I don't need generic billboards anymore. I need ones that are going to be unique or funny or, or really clever. I think the ones that I really love are the ones that are specific to Las Palmas or Juarez, that reference something that doesn't exist in real life. So, create a burger chain that doesn't exist, and create a dental service that doesn't exist. Like, think about things that are imaginary and just create them in the series, and I'll jump on board with that, and we'll see how far we can take it. But I mean, you don't have long to submit, so just think about that too. But thanks so much for everybody getting involved with that. I really love it. If you've got any other ideas for some competitions, shoot me through a message on Discord, and we'll chat about it, because I do love these ones that get people involved and creating stuff. But as we start wrapping up this episode, I'm just going to quickly talk about that I've just been placing down some lights. Didn't want this whole area to be lit up, so I've actually disabled all the street lights and just placed down my own custom ones, so that there's only little pockets of light, which you're going to see in the cinematics in a sec. And now I'm just breaking up the surface with some decals, because these roads are quite worn down, and I wanted to get that feel. And I guess on that topic, if anyone is interested in creating some custom roads that are really broken up and worn out, I think I won't be the only one begging for that one, because all these roads are too squeaky clean, and we definitely need some damaged roads on the workshop. I beg of you, anyone interested, message me. I'd love to work with you on that one. But guys, that's it for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. Definitely go and check out Beard Monkey's collection on the workshop and upvote his work, because he's super amazing and he needs more appreciation from everyone who appreciates him. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave some nice feedback or a comment or anything. I'd much appreciate it. But until next time, have a great week, and I'll see you in the next episode. Catch you later.